Shalom and welcome to another episode in our ongoing series called Faith Journeys with God in the Land. Today, you are going to join me for a very unique experience of running up Masada here in the Judean desert. Well, let the adventure begin. I'm going to try to keep my camera as still as possible, but we are ready for this run up Masada. It's about 1,000 feet in elevation gain, and the run is not overly long. It's really, from that point, it's about 1.1 miles. And that's not a long distance, but we go up, up, up. And yet, I'm sure you'll hear me huffing and puffing along the way. This first part is level before we begin the ascent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera around for most of this run. It's already rather warm this morning. It's probably 80 with a high in the mid 90s, so we'll see how fast this run actually goes. It's probably going to be a slow pace, but we want to talk about what Masada is all about. So let me turn my camera around. There we go. As we begin our ascent, we need to talk about Psalm 18, because the word in Hebrew for Masada appears in this text. It's a psalm written by David, and the context is that David is being pursued by King Saul. Now, this started as a result of David killing Goliath in the Elah Valley, way west in the Shvelah, or the lowlands of Judah. So now King Saul is very jealous of David, and David is finding refuge here in the Judean desert. And he writes, Psalm 18, I love you, Lord, my strength. You are my, here's the word, Masada. You are my fortress, my deliverer. You are the horn of my salvation. So we're running up what would eventually turn out to be a palace fortress built by King Herod about 1,000 years after David. This trail is one step after another. On top, we'll no doubt walk some of these steps, but at that point, that's okay. We're going to try to do our best to make our way up this section of the trail. Sometimes we come here for a sunrise hike. As the sun peeks over the hills of Moab to the east, there is the Dead Sea. Across the way are the hills of Moab. David most likely also found refuge in this, or should I say on this, standalone mountain. Because just to the north of here is a place called En-Gedi. And the story unfolds in chapter 24 of En-Gedi, of 1 Samuel. And David is finding refuge in a cave and actually encounters King Saul. Could have killed him, but David chooses not to, because Saul is the Lord's anointed. But after that encounter, David returns to the stronghold. Now, could that be this standalone mountain to the south of En-Gedi that later King Herod, he built this palace fortress? Up we go. Up and away. Trying to keep my camera as still as possible. But let's talk about Masada as it was developed by Herod the Great. He became king of Judah in 37 BC. Shortly after this, I believe it was in the late 30s, or early 30s, I should say, as we count down chronologically, is when Herod built this palace fortress. Now, he had other palace fortresses built, like Machaerus. That's where John the Baptist was beheaded, by the way. It's on the east side of the Dead Sea. Herod also had a palace fortress at Herodium, which is just east of the city of Bethlehem today. So he had a number of building projects happening. Caesarea in 22 BC, the temple in 20 BC. He had a winter palace at Jericho, just on the northern edge of the Dead Sea. But here in Masada, he had a very impressive palace. A 3-tier palace on the north end of the site. Boker Tov. He built at least 12 cisterns to contain the water. Actually, he diverted when it would rain a couple times a year. He diverted the rain into these huge cisterns. So the issue of water wasn't an issue. Boker Tov. These are probably a group of students who went up for the sunrise. They're still coming.
No idea.
Wow, a lot of them are coming.
Come on.
תודה.
So yeah,
Like the bench.
This may be the last of the group coming down. תודה רבה. But as I was saying, Herod had all these building projects happening. He probably already completed this project. I think we'll walk through these people. So eventually, Herod dies in 4 BC.
It doesn't short electricity.
Here's one of the flatter spots. Wow, a lot of groups made it to the south. Just like, huh? So when we talk about what happened after King Herod dies in 4 BC, '66 AD was when the first revolt, the Jewish revolt against the Romans. After numerous battle defeats, and certainly after the temple falls to the Romans in 70 AD, this palace fortress of Herod was used by close to 1,000 Jews as a place of refuge. Now, some use the number 967. Josephus, the historian, gives us this detail. And for almost 3 years, probably until 73 or so AD, the Jews were well protected. There was a casemate wall, which means a double wall around this palace fortress. And yet what the Romans did, knowing they couldn't penetrate through the wall, and here, by the way, is the view of the Dead Sea again. What the Romans did is they built a ramp on the west side, big siege ramp, upon which they positioned their battering rams. They finally broke through. This is after the Jews survived these few years. Remember, they had plenty of water from the cisterns. And yet, when the Romans broke through, what they found really startled them. The leader of the Jews decided that it would be more honorable to fall on their own swords. They're going to walk this stretch rather than to fall at the hands of the Romans. So they took lots. And they, one by one, took their own lives. Again, we know this detail primarily through Josephus. But there were a few women and children, some say 5, who lived to tell the story. It's a remarkable story of courage. Let's try to get back into a running pace. Boy, it's hot. So what Masada represents for modern Israel is that it represents courage, fortitude. It represents a trust in God. And today, this place is honored by all Israelis. In fact, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, have ceremonies up here. You walk up this snake path that I'm taking now, and they remember the story from back in 70 to 73 AD. Indeed, like these steps are for me. It was a difficult journey. The uphill challenges really caused them to place their hands in God, place their lives in the hands of God. This is the final stretch. Okay. And we're almost there. These final steps are always a killer. Saka. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Thank you. So, we made it. That's a challenging run up Masada or Masada. I guess we could make a bunch of faith lessons following this run up this palace fortress. But maybe one that stands out is the one I mentioned at the beginning of the run, and that is God is our fortress. And despite the uphill climbs of life, and sometimes they're endless, sometimes they get us out of breath, sometimes we don't know where the steps are leading to. Isn't that the truth? But yet we are to trust in God and claim Him as our Masada. So I really thank you for joining me on this run up Masada as we now take our final look back towards the east. And as we celebrate that what David wrote in Psalm 18 still stands true for us. We can trust in God in our uphill battles of life, when the steps seem endless, when there's no end in sight to our challenge. We can trust God as our Masada. Claim that word today in your walk of faith. Masada. Masada. God is our fortress. He's our deliverer. And certainly He's our stronghold as well. So be encouraged with these words here from the top of Masada. And until next time, shalom.